I have to tell you this unbelievable story that happened with the Ramban and the Baal Rekeach. It's a story of how we defeat our enemies, which is very negay now. You see, the Rebbeinu Shalom is protecting us on an everyday basis, and He is also defeating our enemies. The story is a little bit involved, but it's an unbelievable story. Anyways, the story goes as follows. Excuse me. The Ramban lived, I don't know, about 800-900 years ago in Spain, and he had many kashas on the Bria. He didn't understand a lot of things in the Torah. But at that point, he was not learning Torah HaKabbalah, even though it was well known that from the Rishonim, the Ramban was from the biggest Mekubalim. But at that point, he hadn't learned it, so he had many kashas in the Torah that he did not have answers to. So, a Gezerah went out in Shemayim that somebody has to go from the Gedolei Adar, has to go teach the Ramban to learn Kabbalah. The Baal Rekeach, who lived in the same time, it was the day before Pesach that this happened, and he fell asleep. And while he was sleeping, he went up to Shemayim, and he heard the decree, the announcement went out that somebody has to go teach the Ramban Torah, and in addition to that, the town that he lives in has a king or whatever it is, and this king is a tremendous Rasha, and any opportunity he gets, he wants to destroy and hurt the Yidden in the worst way possible. So part of the job is to teach the Ramban Kabbalah and also to get rid of this king. Anyways, so the Baal Rekeach said, I am mekabel on myself to teach Ramban Kabbalah, and I will also take upon myself to get rid of this king. So he lived in Worms, which was in Germany, which was very far away from where the Ramban lived in Spain. But once he was mekabelet, so it was Erev Pesach, so in the morning he baked his matzahs to bring along with him. And then, excuse me, that he decided to go, and he was going to have what we call kfitzas haderech, and that he was going to get there within a very short amount of time, and he'll be able to be there before Yontif, before Pesach, because that was the Yontif that was coming. So anyways, he comes to the town in Spain, and people see a stranger. He doesn't know where to go or what to do. He decided he's going to go to the shul. So he goes to the shul, and the Ramban, who was the Rav of the shul, greeted him and said, what can we do for you? So he said he needs a place to stay, and it's Pesach. He needs to eat by his Seder. And also, he would like very much to speak to the people in shul on Yontif. The Ramban said about the speaking, I have to speak to the board members of the shul to see if they let. But otherwise, you could definitely come to me for the start. So he accepted the invitation, and he was going with the Rav, which was the Ramban. He was going with him, and they were going home. And he was listening by the Seder. There were many Talmidei Chacham at the Seder, and they were all talking back and forth in different kashas and terutzim about the Haggadah. But the Baal Rekeach was sitting there quietly. He did not say one word. So everybody was looking at him. Here, everybody is talking and learning about the Haggadah, and he's not saying one word. Although he knew all the answers, but he knew all the answers al pi Kabbalah, so he did not want to say them over. So he kept quiet. everybody thought that he's Am Haaretz because everybody is talking and learning and he's keeping quiet. He must not understand anything. So they all thought that he's an Am Haaretz. And the Ramban is thinking, oh, how am I going to let this guy speak in front of the whole tzibur? Nobody's going to appreciate a speech of an Am Haaretz. So, meantime, the Ramban invited him to take from his matzahs, but the Keach said, no, I only want to use my matzahs. Later on, he said the reason he only wanted to use his matzahs because his matzahs he baked with kavanas, different kavanas, with Kopi Kabbalah, and he knew that the Ramban didn't know Kabbalah at this point, so he did not bake the matzahs with those kavanas, and therefore he decided he's only going to eat his matzahs, he's not going to eat anybody else's matzahs. So they say it was over, they were going to sleep. The Ramban tells him, you go into your room, you go to sleep, but I must tell you, tomorrow morning we're going to go to shul, but you need to wait for me to go to shul, because there's a certain street, if you go down that street, it's very dangerous, and if they catch any Jew going down that street by themselves, who they don't know, they're going to lock him up and they're going to kill him. Baal Rekeach heard, he went to sleep. In the morning he got up very early and he decided he's going to shul. Pesach, he wanted to go early to shul. He went to shul and sure enough, he went and he walked down that street. Sure enough, the king's soldiers, they caught him and they found out that he's a Yid, so they brought him to the king. The king was ecstatically happy because he says now he's going to make a big, huge fire, and this Yid that he caught, who was the Baal Rekeach, he's going to burn him. He's going to show the Yidden who's the boss, and that he's so happy to do such a terrible, horrible thing that he'll make himself feel so good. How great is it to kill another Yid? Anyways, so they locked up the Baal Rekeach in jail, and when they heard about this, when the Yidden in town heard about it, so of course they were very upset that the Yid got caught. The Ramban was upset because he told him not to go down that street, and he went down that street, and then he got caught, but they were davening and trying to get him out, and the Baal Rekeach said, don't worry about it, I will be out, and he told him that when you go home to eat the Suda, please wait for me to make Kiddush. And the Ramban looked at him, wait for you to make Kiddush? You're about to get killed. I'm going to wait for you to make Kiddush. Doesn't make any sense. But anyways, that's what he told him. Came the time that they were going to take the Baal Rekeach and burn him at the stake. Since he knew Kabbalah Maisis, and he had Rishus from Shemayim. And whoever knows Kabbalah Maisis today, obviously it's not used, but he knew it, and he had Rishus from Shemayim, he needs special Rishus to use it, that he was going to use it to save himself and kill the king. So of course the king, who was so proud of catching this Yid, he was going to be there personally to make sure that the Yid died and he burnt him and everything else. What did the Baal Rekeach do? With Shemus, and I have to be specific here, he was able to make it that when somebody looked at him, he didn't change his look, but when somebody looked at him from those people who were in charge of the execution, who came to watch, if they looked at him, they saw the king, and if they looked at the king, they saw the Baal Rekeach. They themselves didn't change. I'm repeating over the lashon of the Maisa. By the way, this Maisa is said over from Rabbi Yuspa, who was a Shamish, Moifis Merabenu. That's the way it's brought down in the story. I'm just telling you the history of the story. So it was brought down that it wasn't that Baal Rekeach now looked like the horrible face of this Russia king. He bade him look the same, but when somebody from those executioners looked at him, so they saw, when they looked at the Rekeach, they saw the king. When they looked at the king, they saw the Rekeach. So what did they do? It was time to kill the Baal Rekeach. So they took who they thought was the Baal HaRekeach, which in reality was the king, and they burnt the king. When the people realized what they did, that they burnt the king, so then they wanted to, they said, where's the Baal HaRekeach? Meantime, he had slipped away, and he had gone to the Ramban's house, and the Ramban was waiting for him to make Kiddush, and the Ramban saw him, and he jumped up, said, how could this be? And Lamaisa, this is what it was. I just wanted to tell you that the lashon in the story is that it says that Tmunas Hasar was switched with the Tmunas HaRekeach. And I'm emphasizing again that even if anybody knows how to do Kabbalah Maises, which we don't today, but even so, you have to have special permission from Shemayim, which is only reserved for big tzaddikim, which who knows if there are any of that caliber today. But anyways, so the Ramban opened his door, and he heard Kiddush, the Ramban made Kiddush, and he answered, Amen. But he didn't understand anything. So then the Rekeach said, the reason he was there, that there was a decree from Shemayim, that the Ramban, who was a great tzaddik on his own, that they needed somebody to teach him Kabbalah to answer all the questions that he had. So the Baal HaRekeach answered his question, all the questions that he had, he answered for him. And then they realized that this person is a huge Talmud Chacham, so this issue of letting him speak in the shul was not an issue anymore, and he had no problem with it. And then afterwards he spent a month in Spain, and he taught the Ramban Kol Chachmei HaKabbalah, including Kabbalah Maises and how to be mishtamish with Shemus and all the things that go along with it. And then it became known that this Chachma that the Baal HaRekeach brought down into the world and gave over to the Ramban was now going to be spread out amongst all the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz, and he was able to bring down Chochmas HaKabbalah over to the Ramban and the tzaddikim of that day. I just need to mention one other thing, that the Zohar was still hidden, because it was hidden for 900 years after Shim Bar Yochai was nifta, and it only first came out by the early Achronim. They say that the first one who had it was the Ramak, and then it went over to the Arizal, but the Zohar was not around then, so therefore the Kabbalah by the Rishonim was only like Rebbe Mipi Talmud, and that's why it had to be given over that way. Today we have Sfarim, we have Kisvei Arizal, we have a Zohar, and we have so many other Sfarim that we could learn from it, and therefore anybody who wants to learn it, it's not necessarily for everybody, but those people who have a Sherish Neshama to learn it, it'll definitely give them a tremendous Sikbak HaNefesh. And the point of the reason I'm saying this story is because you see the Rabbanu Shalom, either he'll do it al pi derech hateva, or he'll do it al pi derech haneis, but he's always what we call the Shomi Yisrael, and Netzach Yisrael, or Yishaker, and it seems to be the theme these days of Am Yisrael Chai.